Welcome, everyone. Just admitted everyone who is in the waiting room. I thought we'd wait another minute or so to see if anybody else will trickle in. I don't feel very strongly about that rule about keeping the camera off. So if you would like to turn your camera on and wave, feel free, or you can keep it off. It's totally up to you. Hi, Ruth. It's good to see you. Oh, and Gary. It says you're Judy, but you're Gary. Hi, Judy Finn. Hi, Mary. Okay, it is 6:33. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I will just admit people as they arrive. And this is being recorded, so it will be available to view later on the project website for those who miss this entirely or for those who miss any part of it. So, hi everyone. It's good to see you again. My name is Tracy Bonashinsky, and I'm the Mid-Sound Fisheries Enhancement Group Project Manager for the Lake City Floodplain Park Project. I'm really honored that so many of you have taken time to be with us, especially during the season of vacations and gearing up for back to school and all the things that happened in August. I really did get so excited when I saw all your names on the registration list, because it's been a while since we've been together, and it really means so much to me and our entire project team to have you here with us tonight. So thank you so much for being here. Okay. So we'll start tonight by reviewing information that you may have heard already if you've been with us from the beginning, or that will catch you up if you're joining us for the first time tonight. We'll share what we heard from you in workshop 3 and our related in-person outreach. We'll explain how we've incorporated the park designs you generated in the last exercise into our evolving understanding of what this natural space can be, and then we will introduce our placemaking activity for the evening. After the activity, we'll summarize the conversation and share next steps, and we can take questions at that time as well. Just a few notes. The meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the project website for future viewing. So if you do have privacy concerns about that, you are very free to keep your camera off the whole time. Or there's going to be a time later during the activity when you can turn them on if you would like. And if you have it on now and you want to keep it on, that's fine with me too. We'll continue to take feedback related to this stage of the project via a survey that we'll put up on the project website, and I'll have that up for at least 2 weeks following the workshop. Also, I'm going to put an appearance at the Lake City Farmers Market, so I can send an email to the project email list about when that is, and you can stop by and see me there too. That would be delightful. Finally, Lake City is a wonderfully diverse community. Your friends and neighbors have come here tonight bringing diverse backgrounds and experiences with them, so please be open, curious, and respectful as people share their unique hopes and dreams for this park. And I really hope you have a good time placemaking. The project's a partnership, as you probably all remember, between Seattle Parks and Recreation, Seattle Public Utilities, and Mid-Sound Fisheries Enhancement Group. And Mid-Sound, for those we've not yet met, is a nonprofit dedicated to salmon recovery and watershed restoration with local communities. And it's really been such an honor to be a part of this project with our city partners and with you. We're working with a fantastic group of landscape architects, engineers, and other professionals at Facet Northwest. Facet was formerly David O Consulting Group and the Watershed Company, the same wonderful team we've had working with us on this project since the beginning. Different names, same people. So you'll see many of us from all these organizations here tonight listening to you so that we can incorporate your placemaking ideas into the park design. We expect that your visioning and placemaking feedback will help us advance the conceptual design, which I'll share with you later tonight. This is an important milestone, and there's still so much about the design that we need to refine, and we'll do that in collaboration with you as we move forward. Fall remains on schedule. Construction of the park is projected to happen in 2026. So our goal tonight is to share what we heard from you in workshops 1, 2, and 3 and our related in-person outreach, share how community priorities relate to Thornton Creek and floodplain reconnection goals, and hear your ideas about placemaking for the new park. One of our overarching goals is to create a space with you that connects a diverse Lake City community to an improved natural area. And our other overarching goals are to restore Thornton Creek on the property to a more natural state, to reduce large-scale flooding up and downstream, to create and restore habitat for fish and wildlife, and to improve the health of Thornton Creek and its watershed. I know that most, if not all of you, are very familiar with where the project site is, but just to review and to bring those along who are joining us for the first time, the future park is located on Northeast 125th Street between 23rd and 24th Avenues Northeast. This is about 4 blocks west of the Lake City branch of the Seattle Public Library and Lake City's Civic Core. To give a bit more context about the immediate surroundings of the project site, it's bordered by private property on the north and west sides and most of the east side. There's no through street bordering the north end of the site. Current access to the property is from Northeast 125th Street and will remain that way. And 24th Avenue Northeast is a really short cul-de-sac street. The southeast corner hosts some of the steepest slopes on the site, so you really have the sense of looking down into the site when you're on the street. These are some of the things that we've kept in mind as we think about what the space can be and how it can be accessed. So before I review what we've heard from you in workshops 1, 2, and 3, our in-person engagement and in emailed comments, I'm really excited to share with you the selected creek alignment. As a reminder, we considered 3 options, all of which would allow for floodplain or side-to-side reconnection and hyporheic or up and down reconnection. Option 1 followed the current creek alignment. Option 2 included increased length through a meander, allowing us to add more complexity to the creek. And option 3 also increased the length of the creek by moving it just a bit further north than the current alignment. Creek alignment was selected based on a thorough analysis of the site conditions, consideration of site constraints, including but not limited to the King County sewer main that's on site, and modeling showing which alignment could result in greatest floodplain storage and other watershed benefits. So here we are. We selected option 2, the meander option, to move to the next phases of design. As you can see here, we are including a back channel in addition to the meander. This option adds creek length, maximizes the amount of wood we're able to put in the channel, which is good for so many reasons, including it's really good for fish habitat. This design retains as many native trees on site as possible. It increases the amount of floodwater that the creek can store on site and maximizes the amount of water that will be exchanged between the stream and the sediment below the stream bed, which will help cool the creek and clean it of pollutants. That's the hyporheic exchange. Okay, so I'm going to back up just a moment and talk about workshop 1, which was a long time ago now. So just to remind you, we asked you to share the neighborhood needs, hopes, and dreams for the project site. And then frequency of mention helped us glean ideas for the park that we represented with the National Park Service icons that you see here. And one of our main takeaways from workshop number 1 and the related in-person outreach that we did around that time was the high degree of alignment within the community and between the community and the city about what ideas would work well for a community green space and for the creek. Then in workshop 2, by placing tiles representing community-generated park ideas on a map of the project site, you created the first round of park design sketches for us. Hundreds of community members created 41 park designs, and it was truly delightful to hear you all talk about your ideas as you were creating either on your own or in community. I really loved how excited you all were about the park and how thoughtful you were about Thornton Creek and your neighbors. So we took all of the plans that community members created and analyzed them to identify the common trends across each design. From this, we created options for different areas of the park and asked you to select the items that you thought were the best choices to create a new nature park for the Lake City neighborhood. When we analyzed the results of this exercise, we looked for points of consensus and points of division. We found that the community is very interested in a loop trail, seating, accessible walking trails, a bridge, gathering, creek restoration, revegetation, and overlooks. And that the community is divided on some elements like a central trail connection, a stair climb at the southeast corner, and the size of the plaza at the back of the park. What we gleaned overall is that the community is looking for a balance of amenities that fit the size and context of the site. The goal of identifying trends in community feedback at this stage was to help us create a conceptual park design that provides as many points of consensus as possible when it comes to public access while minimizing impact to environmentally sensitive areas. So once we'd integrated all that community feedback from workshop 3 into a conceptual design, we dug deeper into feasibility conversations with Seattle Parks and Recreation and Seattle Public Utilities. We talked about issues related to maintenance, trail surfacing, costs, tree retention, and other environmental concerns. And those conversations resulted in some additional adjustments to the conceptual design and brought us to where we are today. So I'm really excited to show you, here it is. This is our selected conceptual design, or 30% design, if you're familiar with design jargon. If you've been with us for a while, it might remind you quite a bit of one of the options that you saw in workshop 3. It ended up being pretty similar. The placement of amenities maps to areas of prior disturbance where the former residence and garage were at the front and the back of the property. The design provides walking paths and accommodates small and large groups in sitting and gathering areas, again, at both the front and the back of the site. It provides opportunities for nature immersion, maximizes creek restoration, and minimizes impact to an existing wetland and retains as many native trees as possible. So we are still considering a trail connection north of the creek, as indicated by those yellow sketchy lines that you can see. It has kind of a star and asterisk at the corner of them. So the exact trail location and surfacing are not yet determined. So don't take those lines as indication of what the trail alignment would be. It's just kind of showing that we're still considering that. Such a trail connection would only happen if it would not overly impact environmentally sensitive areas like the wetland that's north of the creek on the east side of the property, and not also impact how well the floodplain is able to function in storing floodwater. There we are. Next, I'm really excited to show you these few sketches we have showing the experience of the park. You can orient yourself to where we are in the park by looking at the little insert maps there. This is a view of the park entrance, showing a small arrival plaza and overlook off the sidewalk, and then a ramped trail into the park interior. This is a view from the boardwalk as you approach the creek and the bridge. This sketch shows how it might feel to be immersed among trees and other native plants and close to the creek. I think this part would be pretty close to the back channel. This sketch shows the experience of being on the plaza at the north end of the park. So these folks are sitting and standing looking back toward the street. So we wanted to remind you of what a restored creek and a floodplain might look like, as well as what the wetland and steep slopes on site might look like when they're restored. These aren't actual pictures from the site just yet. Many of us aren't accustomed to seeing a lot of fallen trees in rivers, but healthy river systems and creeks have a lot of wood in them, and we're really excited to add some to Thornton Creek on the stretch in the new park. At this stage, we aren't selecting materials, but we do think forward to what might be good material choices to make sure that we design appropriately for park amenities that fit the look and feel of the space and that are resilient to things like use, weather, and in this park, flooding. Here you can see some examples of the direction that we're thinking right now. So now I'm going to turn it over to Amber from Facet for the evening's activity.
Thanks, Tracy. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Great.
Okay, fantastic. So in the next part of the workshop, we're going to participate in an activity together. We're going to gather your thoughts and feedback about the park design so far and your vision on the park identity. So at this point, you can turn on your video, but please leave yourself on mute. So about park identity, when we talk about a park's identity, we talk about the place that it becomes to the community. So it may be its reputation or brand. There's a number of words that you can say, but it's what might make something a park where you're immersed in nature, a park that's about history, or a park that is a popular place in the urban environment. So when we talk about a park's identity, we can say that can be expressed in many ways. It might be through the materials used in the site construction, through the style and detail that's incorporated in the park design. It may be through interpretation. So whether it be, signs or exhibits that are present that talk about the history or talk about the storytelling of a place, or it may be things that are actually integrated into the site construction. So for example, in the city of Seattle, if you've been to any of the Link transit stations, you'll notice that both usually the floor that you're standing on and the backdrop of the station itself have some elements of interpretation about where you're located in town, or the story of the place that you're at. The art integration is another way that this can be expressed. And so these are all parts of a park design that we look to a community to really understand how you're feeling about the park, what it means to you, what the story is that the community would like to be experiencing and reminded of when they're at that place. So we're going to ask your input on some vision questions that can help to inform placemaking at this park. So this process is called placemaking. That's what we refer to it as. So we'll go to the next slide. So the questions are going to come up on screen through Zoom. You'll have a pop-up window that will come up. We'll provide 2 to 3 minutes to answer each question. We may ask individuals to share some of their responses if we have time within those minutes. And we will close the poll when most people have submitted a response. So when you see the question come up, if you could answer it and then click the done button, that'll cue us that people have finished the poll. So any thoughts are welcome. You can also share your feedback in the chat, and I'll let you know how to do that. So we're going to do a practice poll. So you'll see a pop-up come up on your screen. If you could just answer and then hit that close button. I think Tracy's going to start the poll here pretty soon. So if you don't see a pop-up, it's possible that there might be, Tracy, let us know when you set that up. Okay.
Just launched it.
Great. So if you should see a pop-up on your screen, if you don't see it, it's possible that you may have a pop-up blocker or something like that enabled. If that's the case, you can just put your response in the chat. The chat will only send to Tracy as host or one of the co-hosts. So you can select if you want to put it in the chat. If you're not using the pop-up box, you can select Tracy, or you can select me, Amber, as a co-host. Okay, it looks like we just switched to question 1. Is that your intent, Tracy? Uh-oh, and Tracy, you're muted.
I don't know why that happened.
Okay, we'll go ahead and...
I'm gonna end that one for now.
That sounds great. Okay.
As well. Did anyone have a chance to answer the first question? I'm gonna launch it again.
Wait, question 1 or the test poll?
The test.
Okay.
There we go.
Great.
Oh, I can see that it's working for people. I get to learn about all of your favorite colors. See, it's worked for 17 people. Is there anyone who it hasn't worked for that could use some tech help? If it doesn't work for you, you're welcome again, like Amber said, to put your answer in the chat. Okay, and that's quite a lot of us, 17.
Great.
And the
Perfect. Okay, so that is what the polls will look like as we go through these next slides. So I am going to go ahead and get over to question 1. So question 1 is, how will this place benefit the Lake City neighborhood? We'll give a few minutes to each individual. Tracy, do you want to set that question up, question 1? So again, you should see the poll pop up with question 1. How will this place benefit the Lake City neighborhood? So as mentioned, we'll give just a few minutes. Just write your answer and submit. And when we see that most of the individuals have participated, then we'll go ahead and close that poll. And as a reminder, if you're not seeing the pop-up, then you can type it into the chat as well. Okay, we've been about a minute. We have about almost half of everyone submitted. Give just a little bit more time. All right, we've got about 60% of the audience has responded to this one. We're at about a minute and a half. So would anybody like to share, anybody who's finished, would you like to share what you've written? You can put a hand up. Sure, Stephen.
Yeah, I see it as very similar to the pond over there by Nathan Hale. What do we call that?
Are you thinking about Meadowbrook Pond?
Meadowbrook Pond. That's the pond I'm thinking. Very similar to that, used for overflow in case of flooding, and also a very nice place for waterfall to go and walking and look at wildlife. And a shortcut for the people at Nathan Hale to get to Meadowbrook where they live. I see it as very similar to that. It doesn't have a walk-through option, but it is sort of like a destination for people that in the area that may want to go for a walk one day. They can walk to there and they can see the creek, which is a very beautiful part of our neighborhood that really doesn't have any other creek access. There's one over there by Taco Time on Lake City Way at about 115th, 117th. But it wouldn't be, this would be very nice also. There's a couple things as we were going through there I'd like to mention. I don't know if we have time right now.
I think if you want to share your response, that's great. We'll definitely have a lot of more time at the end.
Okay,
I see Mary has her hand. If you don't mind, Stephen.
I can hold, no problem.
Okay, that would be great. Go ahead, Mary.
I see it as having a chance to have another gathering place. I mean, somewhere outdoors, somewhere where you can just get away from the busyness of the streets and just have a place that's peaceful.
Wonderful. All right, it looks like we're right at our 3 minutes, so we'll go ahead and move on to the next question. Thank you, Stephen and Mary, for sharing. Okay, question 2. What comes to mind when you think of this place? So thinking about the place as it is, but also the design that you've seen. And what comes to your mind when you see the design, when you see the images of what might be included here? So as mentioned, we'll go ahead and give it about another couple minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. And when we see that most individuals have submitted their answer, then we'll ask another person to share. We have about a third The responses in. What comes to your mind when you see the images that Tracy was sharing, when you see the design? Okay, we're at about half. Would anyone like to share what anyone who's completed, would you like to share your thought on what comes to mind? If not, it's okay, but, oh, Ruth, go ahead.
Yeah, well, when I see things like this, I think of habitat. That's always just where I go. And I think this will be a really nice place for birds and beavers and probably a few raccoons. And it's always so fun to watch those things. And we've actually, Thornton Creek Alliance is actually putting out cameras now and watching what's going on under the water. And it will be really nice to have access to something like this as well.
Wonderful, thank you. Anyone else like to share? We have about 45 seconds left in this for this question. I see Nathan with a hand up.
Well, every time I drive by that space, I always see that sunny patch of grass right there in front of the creek, and I'd really like that to be accessible just on the north side of the creek. It's just a really inviting space, you know, instead of having to sit on a platform or up above it, being able to actually get down all the way to the creek, you know, so that you can actually touch nature. Like for me, when I see these spaces, when I see those high railings and that path that just tells you this is where you go and then you come back, it's really depressing and difficult compared to a space with a very low couple inch railing that just, and then letting you actually access some of that space. It's just night and day.
Thank you. That's wonderful. And then I think I saw Gary Olson. I saw your hand up. And then we'll move on.
Yeah, I really believe this gives a real sense of pride to the community to have something like this in their neighborhood. You know, Lake City's got, you know, business areas, and I think having a space like this is really going to make people uplifted about where they're living.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, we're at about 3.5 minutes, so we'll go ahead and go on to our next question, question number 3. So how does the design make you feel? Heard some good information already with what some people have shared, but how does it make you feel to see the progress that we've made, to see that your ideas were incorporated, to see where we are with the 30% design? So Tracy has the new poll up. And again, we'll give a couple minutes. And when we see that most of us have submitted it, we will go ahead and see if there's time for a share. We have about a quarter of our responses in. Okay, so we've got about half of our responses in and about 1:45 left in our 3 minutes for this question. So would anybody like to share? How does the design make you feel? You can, if you have your camera on, we're trying to spot hands in the frame, or you can raise your Zoom hand.
I can't figure out how to do that.
Oh, that's okay. Did you want to share?
Sure. I think it makes me feel optimistic for the future, and it makes me feel like there's a place for this history to be held, and the history of the humans who were there, but also the natural creatures.
It's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? How does the design make you feel? Okay, it looks like we've got 60% for attendees answering the question. We're at about 2.5 minutes. So if no one wants to share, we'll go ahead and we'll skip on to the next one. Or unless, do we still have, okay, we're good. All right, I think we had a couple last answer come in there. Okay, so we'll go ahead and go to question 4. How does the design align with your expectations and values? So many of you, we've had participate in the design process now for a while. Since Tracy shared the timeline, it has definitely been a commitment from the community's part to stay involved and participate in these, and we're really thankful for that. So we would like to know how the design aligns with your expectations and values, what you've shared with us along the way. And so again, we'll give a couple minutes, and when we see that most individuals have submitted their responses, then we'll see if anyone wants to share. Okay, we have about a quarter of our responses in. And the question is, how does the design align with your expectations and values? Okay, we have about almost half coming up. I do want to thank everyone for participating in this way as the city is pursuing funding grants for projects like this. The community participation and support and community feedback is an instrumental part of that process. So thank you for providing your feedback. Okay, so we're at about 2 minutes. We have time for probably 1 or 2 people to share. If you would like to share your response for how does the design align with your expectations and values? Would anybody like to speak?
No.
Go ahead. Gary and Judy Olson.
Yeah. So I guess I'm just want to appreciate the work that you guys have done in terms of keeping the community involved. As we got into this program, that was certainly something that we wanted, but that doesn't always happen in these projects. And getting the community involved early in the process is, I think, really important, and something that needs to be, done more in the projects that the city does. So to me, that's kind of a number one. It doesn't have to do with the design itself, although it does because we had an input, but I think the way it was handled was very, very well done.
Thank you. I saw another thumbs up. We appreciate that too. Some hand clap emojis. That's great. And I see a heart from Frank. Thank you. Anyone else? Would you like to share your response on this question? Okay, we can go ahead and move. Oh, Ruth, I saw your hand go up. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, it looks to me like it's pretty unanimous that we're happy with this design and how the project has been handled. And as I put in my comment, it respects the creek and it invites people in, which I don't think you can beat that. So, yeah.
Thank you. That's great. Okay, we'll go ahead and go to question 5. So Tracy's going to end the poll. We had a good number of responses there. Thank you again, everyone, for participating. So this next question, are there any other thoughts or ideas that you would like to share? So again, we'll leave this up for 2 to 3 minutes. Any other thoughts or ideas that you would like to share? And I know, that you guys have just seen this design, putting you on the spot a little bit here to kind of see if there's anything else. These questions will be on the website, and there is we'll share a link to these questions to a survey. So if you want to share this information, as Tracy mentioned, the recording and this presentation will be on the project website. And so anyone who you know might want to see this information or miss this meeting, there's still room for them to participate and to provide their feedback. And you can also, if there's any other thoughts or ideas that you would like to share after this meeting, that would be the avenue to do so.
I got a request to go back and to the slide that has the conceptual design on it so that people can see it again. So I'm going to do that right now.
Sure.
And to let you all know so that you were not surprised.
So Tracy has the design back up on the screen. So again, any other thoughts or ideas that you'd like to share is the current question. We have about half of the audience, 52% have put something in there. So we've got about a minute left in our 3 minutes. So we can take a comment if anybody wants to share what they shared in their response. We can do so. And then, of course, as mentioned earlier, we will have more of an open discussion at the end of the presentation, which will continue just after our survey is ended. So we can also go ahead and move on when we get to our 3 minutes. We have about 30 seconds left on this one.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Hi, I was just kind of wondered about if there were going to be like bike lock areas or what kind of signage about the history or the wildlife that we might see, or if there were going to be, artworks, that kind of thing. I know that those things have been talked about in previous workshops, and I wondered if that had been considered in this final design, or to what extent.
I can speak a little bit to that, Tracy, if you'd like. Okay, great. So yes, all of those elements have been considered. We did hear about the importance of some of those things, and many of them mentioned as things that were of interest to the community. So what you're seeing now is what Tracy mentioned is the 30% design. So this is really a concept that allows us to do some really critical elements, like look at what permits will be required, more specifically, look at what the cost of elements might be. And so for the sake of where we're at with 30%, yes, the plan is to incorporate those elements. So bike parking would be something that would be required at the park. And so we have that shown in the design. It's pretty tiny from where we're sitting, but it is there. And then elements like artwork and interpretive signs are not currently shown, like represented in this drawing, but they are consistent with the programming in Seattle parks. And so they are definitely elements that the team is continuing to discuss. And those would be things that would really start to be tackled as the design moves forward into the later design stages. And we know that there's funding and support for those elements. Okay, thanks for the thumbs up, Brad. I appreciate it. All right. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on from this question. All right, so we are on, Tracy's going to get us back to where we're at in our presentation. Okay, so as mentioned, these projects can also be answered online and at the project website. So there is a QR code here. This will take you to the project website. But if you go to the project website, which is where many of you may have signed up for this meeting, and where you can stay updated on the content and updates for the project, that project website is www.lakecityfloodplainpark.com. No spaces in the name. So it's linked here if you want to scan it with your phone. And of course, this will be up on the website where you can access the presentation. So we're going to go back to the next slide that will take us back to some of what we learned from the community in workshop 1. So this is a word cloud that was created from some of the comments and ideas and vision that the community shared back when we were talking about what this site is now, and what the community might like to see. So we heard a lot of words like natural, creek, habitat, neighborhood, community, restoration. And so we wanted to bring this back because we wanted you as community members to know that we have continued to look back and refer to the information that's been shared with us throughout this entire process. And our aspiration is that we hope that we made good on what we brought to you today for the 30% concept, and that it is an a design, an articulation of what you have shared with us. So those questions about, did we get it right? Did we align with your expectations and values? Are the feelings that come out when you see this design the feelings that you had hoped you would have when this place was moving along into a more specific design? So I don't know, we don't have a question necessarily about this slide, but we did want to share it and let you know again that your input is valuable and valued and taken seriously throughout this process. So I'm going to turn it back over to Tracy to talk about next steps.
All right, thank you so much, Amber, and thank you to everyone who is here and everyone who might listen later. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your hearts and your ideas with us tonight. I'm really looking forward to reviewing your responses and to finding out how you responded to what we've shown you. I'm really actually enjoying being in this kind of space of thinking about seeing this for the first time, because of course I've been able to see it all along. In the meantime, I wanted to share with you that the project team is working right now on securing funding for construction of the park. Good news is that we've already received a grant from the Department of Ecology that takes us a long way. And we have submitted grant applications to the Washington State Recreation and Conservation Office. I'm doing presentations to those review panels right now this week. I had one yesterday and I have another one tomorrow. And then when other opportunities become available, like from the King County Flood Control District or anything else that seems appropriate for this park, we'll apply for those as well. So it's really exciting to think forward like that and to be preparing for the actual implementation of the design that you're helping us create. At the same time, we'll be advancing the design to the next milestones and applying for the permits that we'll need to build it. We have at least one additional public workshop on the horizon to share our progress, if not two. And the project team is available at any time to answer questions via email or a phone call. I know our updates on the project website have been sparse, few and far between, but we are here. We have been working very diligently on moving this forward. And I am always available via email or the phone. I am happy to talk to you at any time. So with that, I would like at this point to kind of open it up generally for anyone who might have any questions, or if you'd like to share to the broader group anything that you're just thinking about the project, the design, the site. I would love to hear it. And I think that I think I'm going to stop sharing for now just so that I can see everybody, and then I'll share again before we end. Okay, now I can see not everyone, but I see Steven's got his hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, I think my mic is on now.
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay. So I've lived very close to that park for a long time. You know, I was a neighbor of Charles who lived there. And there have been times where we've had some severe rains and it has flooded pretty badly. I'm thinking specifically of one time around 2004, where the conduit that goes under 125th Street, that conduit got blocked by different debris coming down the creek, and the water backed up all the way to his front porch. That entire place that's the floodplain park right now was a lake. I was concerned that I would have to find a boat to go rescue him, but apparently there was a way to get out from the back of the park. And I was just wondering if during construction, if they took into account that we might have some extreme weather conditions that could happen.
Yes, absolutely. We've done a lot of creek modeling to help us understand what might happen at different flood events. I don't want to put people on the spot, but Jack or Eric, would you like to speak a little bit to how we've explored that issue? Or the city? No, the city, and Dave, you're welcome to speak up if you'd like to.
Thanks, Tracy, and thanks for the question, Stephen. I'll defer the technical answer to Mid-Sound's consultants here who can go into more detail, but I'll just say that on any of these kinds of floodplain restoration projects, for Seattle Public Utilities, when we're putting money into these projects and need to maintain them in the long term, our number one goal, in addition to all the things about restoring habitat and creating public open space, is we need to make sure that we're not increasing flood risk to the upstream properties or to the downstream properties or the neighboring properties. So there's a lot that goes into that analysis, and there's experts here who can speak to that if you have more questions, but we are taking that aspect of the design seriously, and it's something we'll continue looking at each stage of the design.
Yeah, Dave, I think you answered that well. We're modeling extreme events and also a climate change scenario, which increases the precipitation. And so, we're looking at 100 year, even I think even higher than that. So, and like Dave said, we're ensuring that basically we're increasing the floodplain storage. So we're improving the flood storage and not worsening conditions upstream or downstream.
I'm curious, is the park part of the Seattle Public Utilities the way Meadowbrook Pond is, or is it just Seattle Public Park?
This one's a little different than Meadowbrook. Meadowbrook is owned and managed by Seattle Public Utilities. We're doing this one in partnership with Parks. So we're sharing costs on the acquisition and design and development of the site. And long-term, SPU will be responsible for maintaining the culvert and the creek channel, and Parks will be maintaining the amenity features in the upland areas.
And I should have introduced myself, Eric Davido. I'm the principal civil engineer for Facet. Thank you.
One more thing that I wanted to just put the cherry on top of the conversation here is that with the modeling and landscape amenities as well, all that goes hand in hand with flood elevations and making sure that the boardwalk and bridge and plaza areas all kind of jive together, and all of those design elements are being designed accordingly.
Sorry, I was on mute. Jack is a civil engineer also with the Facet team. And so he's right, both the landscape architecture team and the civil team have been working with the results of the creek modeling, as Dave mentioned, to look at all of these different elements and then make sure that whatever is being proposed is a smart investment and a safe investment for the community and for the city. I see Elt has her hand up. My apologies if I did not pronounce that right.
I didn't spell it right. I'm sorry, I'm Ellie, and I'm thinking that this is such an opportunity for young people to connect to nature, and there are local elementary schools, but to get to this park, you have to go to 125th and then in, right? And I know there's private ownership, but I think that it'd be really great if there was a way to sort of shortcut maybe seek a right of way for passage. And I feel like there are road ends and things in that area that maybe could be utilized. And there's a development, if I'm wrong, I'm not sure whether I have the right location, but there's a development pending, I think, on the north side of the park that is multiple dwellings. And I just feel like, permit issuers could maybe hold them to a standard that that would allow access.
That's a great comment. We have heard a lot about access through this process. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Anyone else? It looks like Gary and Judy. Oh, you're muted.
My question has to do with Thornton Creek Commons, which is one of the projects to the west of the park. And it looks like they have a kind of gathering area kind of around the creek. And I'm wondering, have you guys been working with them to make sure that, you know, what's going on there is folds into what's going on at the park? And also, is there a way that it can be combined or joined together so that, you know, people have access through that? I'm not sure what the private property aspect is of this.
Amber, do you want me to?
Yes, Grace, yep, I was
Gary,
thinking-
I don't actually know about that development, and so I would have to say that our project has not been coordinating with them, but I am very interested in learning more. I don't know the extent to which we would be able to coordinate with them, but it's something that would be good to have on our radar. So thank you for bringing that up. And maybe I will either Google it or circle back around to you to learn more.
So I did see Brad has a hand up, and then it looks like Jeff.
So my question, Gary asked my question, frankly, but it has to do with the Thornton Creek Commons, and maybe even Ruth can answer this. If I'm not mistaken, there is a Thornton Creek Alliance tour that's happening tomorrow evening, and maybe that's something that people could learn a lot about the project and how it could be combined, or what sort of elements would fit together with this project. And I just maybe Ruth or somebody else could comment on that. Thanks.
Yeah, we do have a tour there tomorrow evening, but unless you have emailed me, I would recommend that you not show up, because she only wants a certain number of people and parking is limited. So email me if you're interested. As to whether or not she would be willing to coordinate, somebody somebody involved in the project rather than a community volunteer would be best suited to bring it up with the developer. Because as I understand it, the idea that all this is private and nobody else is going to be using it, and there's a little dog run in there as well. And I mean, if you only have 9 homes and say half of them have 1 or 2 dogs and they're cleaning up after themselves, it's manageable. But if the public starts going in there, it's going to be, I don't know. But I don't think somebody with a formal designation should talk to her on their own. That's my recommendation. Having had a couple phone calls with her and emailed with her, it is private property, and that seems to be an important matter. So I'll leave it at that.
Got it. Okay, so
Just
Jeff,
out of,
I see you next.
just out of
Oh,
curiosity, I just want to ask our city teammates if any of them are aware of this private development, just out of curiosity.
Yes, we're aware of it.
Aware, okay. Yeah.
okay, Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, all I was gonna, these responses have covered some of what I was gonna say. The only thing I would add is that it's not too soon to be talking to Linda, the owner, the developer, about, you know, the interaction between these two sites. I certainly, though, would not expect that the public would have access to the private home development there. But creek function and how it works across the boundary would certainly be worth discussing with her.
Oh, so the Thornton Commons is Linda's project? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful context. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
Ruth?
I would just add that she has sold some of these houses, so any decision would have to go through the homeowners association, which she's probably a big part of at this point. So I mean, the views about allowing access could change over time as more of the houses are sold. And I think 2, maybe 3 of the was 9 are sold right now. But it could change over time, but I don't know. My expectations are not high just based on what I've seen.
Okay, so kind of to sum that whole part up, I'm hearing a lot of interest in kind of an access route from from the north end of the park. I think that's kind of part of this. And then an interest in kind of understanding how the different property owners in the Thornton Creek watershed are in coordination or not for the benefit of the health of the creek. Those are really good thoughts. Yeah, go
Tracy,
ahead.
if I could just
Yeah.
weigh in here.
Go ahead.
I'm Hugh Mortensen. I'm with the Facet team here. I actually live right up the hill too, so I'm a community member. I do have a little more familiarity with this, and I did look up a map. I think we're just about one lot away from that Commons project, with the Japanese church being in between, and so I don't think we share any common boundaries or even a corner. But so just trying to provide a little context there.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. And I do know about that project. I just didn't know it was called Thornton Commons. Yeah. Okay. Does anyone else have anything they would like to share? Any responses to the design that we've shown tonight? Either any
Was a hand.
or well, there was a hand. Nathan, go ahead.
Nathan?
I just want to talk about safety. I'm a big guy. I'm not worried about myself, but I worry about other people. And having a one-way path down there, you really need to have visibility, because I'm just thinking like someone goes jogging down to the end of the path and all of a sudden there's someone blocking their way. So you always have to worry about that. I would say go over to the top of time and see what that looks like, because that's the opposite of what you want. It's a very scary, once you get down into the creek, you're down there by yourself, and I've called it some names that I'm not going to repeat, but it feels dangerous. And it's a beautiful neighborhood. I've been here for 5 years, but I've been through COVID here and some really sketchy stuff. And the site was used by the homeless before they were able to fence it off. So I'm sure some of you that live across, I'm on the other side of 125th, but I'm sure some of the neighbors had to go through hell. So, and I know that 125th is kind of a travel route for a lot of drug addicts, a lot of people that have issues. So it's an urban park, I understand that, but I would be super aware of that, super aware of being able to have visibility when you're walking into the park to see what's already there, and to be able to get back safely if we're not going to have a loop or have access to the north end or something like that, if it's a one-way path. All right, that's just all I gotta say about it.
Thank you. I see Mary Monroe has her hand up. Go ahead, Mary.
Another thing along with what Nathan just said, I was thinking about is because I use a wheelchair, and that would be another thing we have to think about, because there's certain areas where we are prey, especially over here where I live on 35th and 33rd below me. People in wheelchairs are prey. So I agree with Nathan. We would need to have basically a way that you could get in and out and avoid, because that was where in a previous meeting I mentioned about the back corner in that viewing area, because you don't want it to be secluded, especially with what happened to the elderly woman, the dog walker, yesterday. Those are things that we have to worry about.
Yeah, thank you to both of you for sharing those concerns. Amber, would you be willing to talk for a moment about how we have incorporated safety concerns into the design and how we're thinking about that?
Sure. So we have, heard about the community's concerned very early on in the process, and City of Seattle is well aware of the climate of what goes on in our city, especially over the tense few years of the pandemic, which were mentioned. So it is definitely a topic that has been a point of discussion, and we are, again, repeatedly going back to, is this a safe place, et cetera. So the city has been instrumental in sharing with us things that they have learned and their best practices. That said, we also have had some very honest conversations about resources. So we have looked at what can we strategically provide at this park that is not going to make impossible commitment to be able to keep it safe through enforcement that would be out of scale with the rest of the park system. And so things that we've looked at are a sensible site design with open views, making sure that we are providing view corridors to amenity spaces, looking at providing things that are right size, right scale for the park that they're in. So this might be an example of a path that is wide enough for two people to pass without an encounter. Looking at, you know, where we might have loop trails if they're feasible within the site constraints. So a number of things that we've talked about and looked at, and it continues to be a discussion, and it will continue to be a discussion. What I can say is that outside of SPU and SPR, the city partners that are on this project, there are, you know, other departments within the city, such as SDOT, that is also looking at, you know, they have an active project on 125th. So it is very much a concern of the city and a commitment to provide, you know, safe places and safe spaces. So the best that I can say is that, yes, we are aware, and the considerations are basically have worked into every aspect of this project.
Yeah, and then I will say that in addition to the safety considerations being an important part of our process, as Amber mentioned, and us thinking about open sight lines and views and things like that, I think there are things that the project can't do, but that you all can do in your life as residents of Lake City, and kind of encouraging our public leaders to keep people housed and healthy and safe will make this space safer too. And that is, again, not a project of the park, but something definitely I would encourage everyone to talk to their elected leaders about. Okay.
I don't see any other hands up. We do have the last slide of the presentation. Or if there's any other questions.
Again. Okay. So this is a big thank you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Wednesday evening to spend with us. I know that there are many, many things that you could be doing. I know there was some, I was made aware just before this meeting that there is another huge event going on that I felt like I could not compete with at all. So the fact that you're here is wonderful. Thank you so much. It was really an honor and privilege to have you here, and we look forward to being in touch again soon. Before we go, I really need to thank King County for providing generous funding for early community engagement and for our design. Funding that we have for design comes from the King County Flood Control District and the King County Wastewater Treatment Division, and then our project partners, Seattle Parks and Recreation and Seattle Public Utilities, are making in-kind contributions by having their staff work on this project. So thank you to the county and to the city. We truly could not create a park for the community without you. So thank you, community members. I so appreciate you. Thank you again, and I hope you have a good night. I'm gonna kind of release you into the world to your next thing. If you want to stick around and talk to me, I will hang out for just a little bit too. So we're a little bit short. I think we told you we'd keep you for 10 more minutes, but you either got those back or you can hang out with me. So thank you so much, everyone.
And I just wanted to remind anyone, if you want to share this presentation and the survey questions with other individuals in the neighborhood, community organizations, you can do that through the project website, which is www.lakecityfloodplainpark.com. And thank you again. That feedback and your comments are instrumental in demonstrating community support and helping to strengthen funding applications to get this built for the community soon.
Okay. No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Signing off.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, bye. Oh, Mary Hart.